There's a version of you that already knows exactly what to do next. Not a guru, not a guide, not some floating voice in the sky, but you fully tuned, fully aware, and already in alignment with the reality you've been trying to create. It already exists, and the only thing separating you from it is distortion. Distortion in your thoughts, in your nervous system, in your emotional signature. That distortion is why you keep second-guessing your path, why your intuition seems unclear, why signs appear but you don't trust them. It's not because you're broken, it's because you haven't yet learned how to match the frequency of your higher self. And that's what this journey is about. Because your higher self isn't something you chase. It's not found on a mountaintop. It doesn't show up when you finally heal enough. It's something you tune into, just like radio frequencies exist in the space around you right now. Silent, invisible, but ready. So too does your higher self. You don't create it, you match it. And when you do, something begins to happen that no one quite prepares you for. Clarity arrives without effort. You don't need science, because your entire body becomes the signal. Your thoughts begin to stabilize. Your energy becomes magnetic in reality. The people, opportunities, ideas begins to organize around you as if you finally remembered the pattern that was always meant for you. This isn't spiritual poetry. This is energetic architecture. In quantum mechanics, all possibilities already exist in superposition, overlapping, waiting, vibrating. What collapses those probabilities into form is not doing, but observing. And what determines what you observe is the state of your frequency. Your higher self is not just a concept. It's a frequency signature embedded in the quantum field. It is the version of you that's already chosen trust instead of fear, alignment instead of control, resonance instead of reaction. And that version of you already exists in the field. The question is, are you matching that signal or are you reinforcing the frequency of your current limitations? To understand this, let's borrow from both the mystics and the physicists. Ancient teachings referred to the higher self as the oversoul, the aspect of consciousness that remains untainted by ego, trauma, or time. It is the witness of your journey, the blueprint behind the mask. Meanwhile, modern quantum theorists like David Bowie proposed the idea of an implicate order, a hidden and folded reality beneath the visible world where all forms and outcomes already exist in potential. This implicate order isn't separate from you, you are it. Your thoughts, emotions, and identity are constantly emerging from this deeper energetic field. And the higher self is not a new self, it's your original frequency before interference. Now, how do you access this? That's the question. The answer isn't in trying harder, it's in reprogramming your access point. Because your mind is not just a tool for thinking, it's a tuner, a signal amplifier. And if you're constantly tuned to doubt, stress, or urgency, you can't perceive the frequency of your higher self, even though it's always there. The way forward isn't force, it's resonance. That means shifting your brainwave state, calming your nervous system, opening the heart field, and transmitting a new emotional signature, one that matches the elevated states of your higher self. Peace, clarity, trust, vision, neutrality, joy. Most people try to think their way into their higher self, but the higher self doesn't speak in logic, it speaks in coherence. That's why intuitive downloads happen in the shower, in nature, in deep stillness, not in overthinking. You didn't force those moments. You dropped into alignment with a deeper stream of consciousness, and that stream has always been available, you just weren't tuned to it until now. So, here's the invitation. Instead of trying to become your higher self, ask, what would it feel like to match it now? What would my breath do? What thought would I stop thinking? What sensation in my body would I allow? These are not just emotional questions, they're energetic calibrations. Each moment you drop into that inquiry, you send a new signal into the field. And the quantum field is not passive, it's listening, it's echoing back whatever you broadcast. So if you want to collapse into the version of yourself that already knows, already trusts, already leads, it starts here with tuning. This is not a one-time shift, it's a daily alignment. And the longer you hold the signal, the clearer the channel becomes. In the next phase of this journey, we'll explore the true structure of the higher self, not as a personality, but as a vibrational layer of your consciousness. We'll break down how frequency, coherence, and brain-heart integration allow you to feel the connection, not just think about it. And we'll begin dissolving the interference patterns that keep pulling you back into the self you're outgrowing. Because if you're here, if you're still watching, it means you're ready to remember what you've always carried. That the most powerful version of you is already broadcasting. You just need to listen. To understand the higher self in any meaningful way, you must first abandon the idea that it is a distant destination. It is not a goal, it is not a role, it is not even a wiser version of your personality waiting to descend upon you. Once you've read enough books or healed enough trauma, the higher self is fundamentally a field, a frequency layer of consciousness that already exists within you and around you. Right now, the only question is, are you tuned to its signal or to the noise of your conditioning? Let's explore this through the lens of quantum mechanics and consciousness science. In the classical view of reality, the Newtonian model, everything is made of matter. Things are separate, and influence is local and linear. But this worldview collapses at the quantum level. At the subatomic scale, particles don't behave like solid objects. They behave like waves of probability. Invisible, interconnected, and not all. This means what happens here can instantly influence what happens there, because all things are entangled in a field of information and consciousness. It's not an emergent property of the brain. It is the organizing force behind reality itself. Physicists like David Bohm and neuroscientists like Carl Prerem proposed models where the brain is not the generator of consciousness, but more like a receiver tuning into different layers of the universal field. This field contains everything, every possible version of you, every potential outcome, every intuitive knowing that you think you have to figure out. The higher self then is simply the part of you that remains in full coherence with that field. It doesn't waver. It doesn't question. It doesn't resist. It is always present, always stable, always vibrating at a higher rate of order. What makes the higher self higher is not that it's above you in some celestial hierarchy, but that it operates with less distortion, less fear, less attachment, less fragmentation. It sees reality as a pattern, not a problem. It holds perspective while the ego reacts. And because it's not fused to your history, it can access futures you haven't yet imagined. Think of your consciousness as a layered spectrum. At the bottom are the dense reactive states, survival mode, hypervigilance, ego defense, scarcity thinking. These frequencies are biologically real. When you live in them long enough, they become your identity. Your brain becomes wired for them. Your nervous system becomes shaped by them. Your choices reinforce them, and reality mirrors them back. Not because you're cursed, but because you're coherent with them. Now, above that spectrum exists a different bandwidth. The frequency of trust, of clarity, of compassion, of vision. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about seeing from a wider lens, the lens of presence. The higher self lives in that bandwidth, and it's available the moment you match its signature. You don't have to become worthy, you just have to stop tuning into distortion. Here's what that looks like in practice. Imagine two radios. One is playing static, the other is broadcasting a symphony. You can't hear both at once if your attention, your breath, your thoughts, your feelings stays locked on the noise. You become the noise. But the moment you shift even slightly toward coherence, the moment your breath slows, your thoughts soften, your nervous system settles, you begin receiving the other signal, and in that signal lives the guidance you've been seeking. This is not mystical, it's mechanical, it's vibrational, and it's something you can learn to train, strengthen, and stabilize. One of the most powerful access points to your higher self is through what's known as heart-brain coherence, a state where your emotional field centered in the heart synchronizes with your neurological rhythms. Research from the practice coherence, the more you entrain your biology to the frequency of your higher self, and there's more. Neuroscience shows that when your brain shifts into alpha and theta wave states, typically through meditation, breathwork, or deep presence, it becomes more tuned in to subtle information. You're no longer reacting, you're receiving. You're no longer looking for answers in the chaos. You're attuning to clarity in the calm. Now, what most people do wrong is they try to force this connection. They meditate with tension. They visualize from a place of desperation. They speak affirmations while still tuned into fear. And that unfortunately sends mixed signals into the field. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your coherence. This is why we must move beyond information and into integration. Knowing that the higher self exists isn't enough. You have to begin living in ways that stabilize your access to it. This is about frequency hygiene. It's about becoming so emotionally disciplined, so vibrationally aware that you begin to notice when you slip out of alignment and choose to return. And the moment you return, even briefly, the field responds. Not with fireworks or instant miracles, but with subtle, intelligent shifts. A new idea, a different emotion, a release of tension, a chance encounter, a deeper breath. These are the signatures of alignment. This is how your higher self speaks, not in loud commands, but in quiet coherence. In the next part of this journey, we'll move from theory to practice. You'll learn the actual tools, simple but powerful, that regulate your signal and reprogram your mind to hold the frequency of your higher self. Because once you hold the frequency, you collapse the version of you that's been waiting all along. So, how exactly do you tune into the frequency of your higher self? Now that we've decoded the quantum nature of what the higher self is, a coherent, non-local frequency already embedded in the field, the next question becomes practical. How do I become a match to it in my daily life? How do I stabilize that connection so it's not just a fleeting glimpse during meditation, but a lived resonance that shapes my thoughts, actions, and outcomes? The answer is simple. Not easy, but simple. You access the frequency of your higher self by regulating your own broadcast, your breath, your emotions, and your dominant mental signal. These three elements, respiration, emotion, and intention, form the vibrational code that the quantum field responds to. And when they are in alignment, the field does not delay. It begins reorganizing matter and circumstance around the frequency you are emitting. Let's start with the breath. Why is breath so essential? Because breath is not just oxygen. It is your memento moment interface with the field. The rhythm of your breath reflects the rhythm of your nervous system. And your nervous system is the antenna through which you receive higher information. When your breath is short, shallow, or erratic, your body is in a state of incoherence, often survival mode. But when your breath becomes slow, deep, and rhythmic, you begin to signal to your entire system, I am safe, I am present, I am available to receive. That shift alone begins to change your brainwave state, bringing you into alpha or even theta, the doorway states to intuitive guidance and creative insight. So, step 1 in tuning into the higher self. Breathe as if you already trust life. Now we move to emotion. In quantum language, emotion is energy in motion, and it's the most powerful amplifier of signal. The quantum field does not organize around your thoughts alone. It responds to the emotional charge behind those thoughts. That's why visualizations without feeling don't manifest. They lack magnetism. When you want to access the higher self, you must generate the emotional frequency that already exists at that level. Not neediness, not grasping, but elevated states. Gratitude, peace, love, awe, surrender, trust. These emotions are not rewards you get after manifestation. They are the signal that activates the version of you who already has what you're calling in. When you feel them, even artificially at first, you begin to entrain your body to the higher frequency. So ask yourself, what would my higher self feel like right now in this exact situation? Would they feel urgency or stillness? Would they be doubting the process or relaxing into it? Would they need proof, or would they trust their inner resonance? The emotional tone of your higher self is your compass. Every time you match it, you collapse more of that version into your present timeline. Now we bring in the third element, intention. This is the conscious direction of your energy. Intention is not the same as control. It is not trying to force outcomes. It is choosing what frequency you wish to hold, no matter what circumstances are present. When you set an intention from the heart, you are not declaring a demand, you are setting a vibrational trajectory. It's like dialing a frequency on a radio. The signal is always there, but your conscious intention tells your system where to tune. The field then begins to rearrange people, events, and insights to reflect that new frequency. So, how do you bring this together? With a simple morning practice, just 5 minutes. Start by sitting still, closing your eyes, and placing your hand over your heart. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for a moment. Then exhale through your mouth for a count of 6. Do this 3 times. As your breath slows, gently bring to mind a version of yourself who already lives from clarity. Don't visualize the details. Focus on the feeling. Ask yourself, what does it feel like to trust myself fully today? Let that feeling expand. Now speak your intention, not in future tense, but in present. Something like, today I embody clarity. I am the signal. Feel that as truth even if your mind resists. Repeat it once, then sit in silence for 60 seconds, just receiving this simple alignment. Breath, emotion, and intention calibrates your field. It doesn't fix your life, it shifts the version of you who is responding to it. And that in quantum reality is the only change that matters, because when you shift the observer, the observed changes. Now, as powerful as this is, there's one more layer to address. Even if you do this practice, many people sabotage their access to the higher self by running unconscious mental scripts that contradict it. They say, I am peace, but internally, They're thinking, what if this doesn't work? They set the intention, but they don't trust it. And the field, being intelligent, mirrors their true broadcast, not the words, but the underlying frequency. In the next part, we'll explore how to identify and reprogram these old thought patterns, not by fighting them, but by replacing them with vibrationally aligned scripts that the field actually responds to. Because tuning into the higher self is not a one-time event, it's a shift in your energetic operating system. By now, you understand the energetic anatomy of alignment, breath, emotion, and intention. You felt the resonance of the higher self is not just a concept, but a frequency you can match. But there's a hidden barrier we need to address, because even when your breath is calm, even when your intention is clear, even when your emotional state is elevated, something can still interfere. That interference, it's the inner voice, the unconscious mental script that contradicts the new signal you're trying to stabilize. It's the low-frequency narrative playing underneath your alignment, subtly pulling you back into your old identity. And if you don't learn to reprogram it, you'll find yourself oscillating between glimpses of clarity and long stretches of confusion. Here's the truth most people missed. Your thoughts don't have to be negative to misalign you. They just have to be incoherent. If you're saying, I am abundance, but your internal dialogue is calculating your bank account all day, the field doesn't hear your words, it hears your vibration. If you're affirming, I trust the flow, but constantly checking, micromanaging, analyzing outcomes, the signal you're sending is mistrust. And so, the field reflects that back. Not to punish you, but because it's neutral. The quantum field always organizes reality to match the observer's dominant frequency. This is not a moral judgment, it's a frequency mirror. So, how do you shift your internal script? How do you stop broadcasting from the identity you're trying to leave behind? The answer is not brute force. It's not fighting every thought. It's reprogramming your signal by replacing the old code. Not logically, but vibrationally. Here's the key. Your subconscious mind doesn't built on experience. The more you align with the higher self, the more you begin to notice how reality responds to your coherence. You start to see synchronicities you didn't catch before. People show up at the right time. Insights drop in without forcing, obstacles dissolve without confrontation. The field starts flowing around you, not because life got easier, but because you stopped being the resistance. Aligned individuals often describe this state as quiet power. It's not loud, it's not performative, but it's magnetic. You walk into a room and people sense something. Not ego, not ambition, but presence. And presence is power. It's the field around you becoming more coherent than the chaos around you. In energetic terms, your heart field expands. Your nervous system regulates others. You become a node of stability in a world of distraction. And you're not doing this to prove anything. You're doing it because it's who you are without the noise. Now, let's talk about decisions, because this is where most people fall out of alignment. When you're living from your conditioned self, decisions feel heavy. You overanalyze, you fear regret, you play out every scenario. But when you're in tune with the higher self, decision M becomes lighter. It's not about perfect outcomes, it's about resonance. You start to ask different questions. What feels aligned? What choice supports my frequency? What version of me does this decision reinforce? You're no longer choosing from fear, you're choosing from frequency. And this has ripple effects. Your relationship shift. People who once triggered you no longer hold the same charge, not because they changed, but because you're not resonating with the same wound. Conversations become cleaner, boundaries become softer, but firmer. You stop needing to convince anyone of anything. You stop proving, you stop explaining, you simply are, and the field adjusts. There's also a shift in how you experience time. The past feels lighter, less defining. The future feels more spacious, less demanding. You begin to live more fully in the present moment, not because it's trendy, but because that's where the signal is strongest. You realize that your power isn't in controlling what happens next. It's in becoming the version of you that already knows how to navigate it. That's what the higher self embodies. Unshakable presence. Another key sign you're aligned. Your creativity opens. Ideas flow not just in bursts, but steadily. You're no longer blocked by perfectionism or fear of judgment, because you're not creating from identity, you're transmitting from frequency. Whether you're writing, speaking, building, or simply living, your expression becomes clearer, cleaner, more magnetic. People feel it, not because you're louder, but because you're resonating more purely. There's also a shift in your energy body. If you're sensitive, you may notice your heart feels more open, your breath feels deeper, your body feels less tense. more fluid. These aren't just physical sensations. They're signs that your system is no longer operating in survival mode. You're creating safety from within, and that inner safety is the foundation for true expansion. Now, does this mean you never get triggered, never feel doubt, never wobble? Absolutely not. The aligned self is not immune to challenge, but the difference is in how you return. You catch the misalignment faster. You don't spiral as far. You remember the truth sooner. That's the gift of coherence. You don't stay lost. You recalibrate. And with each recalibration, the signal strengthens, the timeline stabilizes. You stop needing external confirmation because the inner resonance becomes your compass. That's the evolution. Not perfection, not constant bliss, but stability and frequency. In the next and final chapter, we'll anchor this shift with a practical, energetic ritual. Something simple, grounded, and powerful that you can do every morning to hold the signal of your higher self. Because this isn't just a video, this is a recalibration. And the more consistently you live from this place, the more life responds in ways that will leave you breathless. You've come far, not just through this journey, but through your own process of remembering who you are beyond the noise. And if something inside you has begun to shift, even subtly, then the signal has already started aligning. But before we close, there's one more step: anchoring. Because insight is powerful, but without integration, it fades. So this is your invitation to ground everything we've explored. The tuning, the frequency, the reprogramming into a single repeatable practice, something that takes only a few minutes each morning, yet has the power to shape the field around you with exponential precision. This practice is not about effort, it's about orientation. It's about reminding your body, your breath, your energy, this is who I am now. And it begins with awareness. Each morning, before the momentum of your old identity kicks in, before your nervous system remembers the story you've been telling, give yourself the space to choose again. Sit, breathe, tune in, place your hand over your heart. Let your breath deepen, not because you're trying to calm down, but because your breath is your signal. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold, breathe out for 6. Do this 3 times. Then ask yourself without judgment, what frequency do I wish to hold today? Not what you want to achieve, not what needs to happen, just what do you wish to transmit? Maybe it's clarity, maybe it's peace, maybe it's magnetic presence. Whatever it is, let your body feel it. Not perfectly, but honestly. Then speak your anchor phrase. We've already chosen one in this journey. It's simple, clear, potent. I am reprogramming. Let this phrase be your tuning fork. Say it slowly, say it softly, say it from your field. Let it echo through your nervous system, through your emotional body, through your quantum signature. You're not commanding the universe, you're informing it. You're broadcasting a new template, one that dissolves the distortion and invites in the version of you that already knows, already trusts, already leads. And then carry it into your day, not as a mantra, but as an energy. Move with presence. Notice your breath. Speak with awareness. Walk slower. Listen deeper. These aren't just habits, they are signals. And every signal you send into the field either reinforces your past or collapses you into your potential. You don't have to get it perfect. You don't have to feel high vibe all the time. You just have to return over and over, because the return is the mastery. That's the secret the ego never wants you to know. The higher self isn't some mystical ideal you are sent to. It's the version of you that keeps choosing coherence, especially when it would be easier not to. And the more often you return, the easier it becomes. You'll start to feel it before you think it. You'll start to recognize the subtle shift from force to flow, from grasping to receiving, from distortion to clarity. And that shift, that's everything. That's where the timelines diverge. That's where quantum alignment